is here today to sound the alarm that people with disabilities are far too often getting lost in KANCARE. And today you will hear about a crisis, and you'll learn that this is unfortunately a man-made crisis. And you'll hear from people with disabilities who are here to testify in person and as well via technology. First, the Big Tent Coalition. Who are we? Well, we are the largest cross-age, cross-disability group of people with disabilities, seniors, parents, providers, and advocacy organizations. Collectively, the Big Tent and its members advocate for or serve over 250,000 Kansans with disabilities. You'll hear the real-life stories of Kansans today who are getting lost in KANCARE. You hear about people being denied access to the very same services that can change their lives, increase their independence, and save precious taxpayer dollars. You will hear about how KANCARE has created new cracks in the system and how people are unfortunately falling through those cracks. The physical disability waiver, there's no other way to put it. It appears to be in a man-made free fall. The traumatic brain injury waiver appears to be dramatically underfunded. The TBI and PD waivers are facing dramatically different but equally threatening challenges, and we'll tell you about those challenges today. Enrollment in the physical disability waiver has literally fallen off a cliff. With per capita spending at the same time, unfortunately, the amount of money that managed care companies per capita has increased dramatically. Millions of dollars were added last year to increase enrollment in the physical disability waiver, but the state has largely sat on that money, not expended it, and enrollment has continued to plummet in the physical disability waiver. Noticing that the money largely went unspent, the legislature is now acting to take that money back. If this happens, even more Kansans will be lost in KANCARE. You will also see today how the state appears to be underfunding the TBI waiver in the current year fairly dramatically. Even though the state promised the federal government that it would increase the number of people enrolled in the TBI waiver, more than doubling it. That's a promise they made to the people of Kansas and the federal government. Yet the amount of money actually appropriated for the current year in the TBI waiver is dramatically down, and we'll show you that here in just a minute. These things are contrary to the best interests of taxpayers and contrary to the best interests of people with disabilities. It's not reasonable to make a promise to the federal government and to the people of Kansas that you'll more than double the number of people served on the TBI waiver and then reduce per capita funding for that waiver by 45% in a one-year period without expecting people to get lost in KANCARE. That's what the governor's budget did. Since that lower TBI waiver appropriation was enacted, people with TBI are now getting the bureaucratic runaround, and they're getting lost in KANCARE. And you'll hear about some of their personal stories here today. It's also not reasonable to make it harder to stay on the physical disability waiting list, or harder to enroll in the physical disability waiver and not expect people to fall through the cracks, get lost in KANCARE, and end up being damaged. You will see in the attached graphs and charts that the physical disability waiver has fallen off a cliff with both enrollment in the waiver and the waiting list plummeting at a breakneck, dangerous pace. Every action has a reaction. And unfortunately, the actions of the state of Kansas are causing a reaction that people are getting lost in KANCARE and they're getting hurt. After you hear the personal stories from the people with disabilities who are here today, the Big Tent Coalition will present common sense recommendations to help people stop falling through the cracks so that they will stop getting lost in KANCARE. And with that, we'll jump to the numbers, which are on the left-hand packet of your media packet. What's happening with the physical disability waiver is absolutely plummeting. It's decreased by nearly 1,500 people in less than 4 years. It went from nearly 7,000 to just over 5,500. That is an unprecedented drop. There's no other way to say it. The PD waiver appears to be in free fall. and it's hurting people and causing people to get lost in KANCARE. Now what's interesting is that the physical disability waiver enrollment has plummeted even after $9 million was added last year to specifically increase enrollment. So KANCARE happens, the legislature adds $9 million to increase enrollment in the PD waiver, and enrollment continues to plummet and decline. This is very disturbing. It's the opposite of what the people of Kansas want, and it's also in opposition to what the state promised the federal government and CMS. The special terms and conditions placed on KANCARE by CMS specifically require Kansas to designate KANCARE savings to, quote, increase the number of slots. That's a direct quote from the special term and condition. And that means increase the number of people enrolled in KANCARE. As you see, the opposite has happened. Now, what is perhaps even more troubling is as enrollment in the physical disability waiver is in free fall, the number of people on the waiting list for the physical disability waiver is also in free fall. It's also declining. And it's declined by nearly 1,000 over less than 3 years. Now, if the number of people on the waiting list has gone down by 1,000, what should happen to the number of people enrolled in the waiver? It should go up. The waiting list is going down. That should mean that more people are getting services and the number enrolled is going up. That's not happening. The waiting list is going down and the number of people enrolled is going down. So what has happened? Well, KANCARE has happened, and the state of Kansas has taken complete control over managing the waiting list and complete control over enrolling people in waiver services like the physical disability waiver. They've instituted new procedures, new verification requirements, new bureaucratic red tape to prevent people from disabilities from accessing these services. The result, people are getting lost in KANCARE, and you'll hear about the stories of what the state of Kansas has done and how it's hurting people with disabilities. Finally, I'll just draw your attention to two final graphs. One is showing how KANCARE has increased the per capita funding on the PD waiver since managed care companies have taken over, at the same time that the enrollment per capita is falling off a cliff. And so, if you look at this, the orange line shows the per capita funding increase in the PD waiver since 2010 cumulative. So by fiscal year 2013, we see a 41% increase in per capita funding for the PD waiver. Look at that giant spike. What happened in between 2012 and 2013? Well, KANCARE happened. That's when KANCARE started. Dramatic increase. So fewer people are being served, but per capita, the managed care companies are getting a lot more money. And even though it appears to go down in 14, I want to show you that that's not where we've actually ended up. That's just the budgeted amount. We don't know what the actual cost is. It could stay flat, it could go up. If it's anything like the prior year, the actual cost in 14 is going to be much higher. So look at that gap between the two lines. The amount we're spending per capita, the amount of people per capita since 2010. There's a gigantic gap between the dollars and the people. Where did that money go? That's one of the things we're asking. Where did that money go? And why are people getting lost and hurt in KANCARE with this type of result? Finally, the traumatic brain injury waiver has a challenge, but it's, oddly enough, the opposite challenge. So on this table, the blue again shows the cumulative change percentage-wise in per capita, the number of enrollees in the traumatic brain injury waiver. And as you can see, it's gone up pretty dramatically. It's nearly doubled. That was a planned increase. Again, the state of Kansas, this administration promised on January 1, 2013, in their latest amendment to CMS, that they would increase the number of people served on the TBI waiver and more than double it. So we see a doubling in the number of people served. What's happened to the per capita percentage change in per capita funding for the TBI waiver? As you can see, it's fallen off a cliff. From fiscal year 13 to what's budgeted for fiscal year 14 is a cumulative nearly 45% decrease. So we've more than doubled, or nearly doubled, the number of people served, yet we've cut in 1 year the funding by 45%. And when you hear the stories of people with traumatic brain injury who are running into brick wall after brick wall and problem after problem, and they're getting the bureaucratic runaround, we think this is the reason why. Because the governor has dramatically underfunded the TBI waiver, and it's hurting real-life Kansans. It's costing them to get lost in KANCARE. With that, I'll ask Rosie Cooper to come up. Rosie?